Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Denise Dixon is a life coach and author who embraces life as an ongoing journey of resilience and self-discovery. She has celebrated successes, faced failures, and continually learned from each. Denise's realistic yet optimistic outlook on personal growth is reflected in her practical life navigation tools, including a series of journals and workbooks available on Amazon. These resources offer guidance on daily planning, emotional well-being, and relationship management, helping others to progress one step at a time on their paths to self-realization. Thank you so much for joining me, Denise. I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. Can I have that when you send?
Absolutely. Let me send that to you. I will send that to you. Of course, it's so great because
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm never gonna have to write again. It's like, yep, tell me about you. There you go. Please send that to me.
I will definitely be more than happy to. And I'm just so excited to speak with you. And I was just sharing with you that I was listening to you on another podcast, and your story just touched my heart because I felt like you were so authentic and so real. And you were even speaking about this on the podcast that lately it's like a lot of these shows are just like feel like they're scripted, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have my questions on the side in case I forget like what I was going to say. In case, because I'm human and I mess up, you know, but it's just so nice to talk to someone who's been through things in life and has overcome and has resilience and just can help others grow in their life as well. So I'm so grateful that you are here and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be here with you.
Oh,
And I
thank
think
you.
we put so much pressure on ourselves as women already. And then what society is doing now with the internet, it's always putting on the space of like, I've made it, right? Like I've made it. I do great every day. I have so much epiphanies and life is just, and that's really not a lot of our experiences. Like we're constantly evolving, we're constantly learning. We're like climbing up the mountain, and sometimes we get up there and whoosh, get pushed back down in the valley and we have to come back up. So I love having those conversations where we can share, like authenticity and vulnerability. And I feel like people grow more from that than, the perfection. Yeah.
Yes. And speaking about mountains, you reminded me of a one time where I actually was climbing up a mountain and I decided to take the harder trail instead of the easier trail. And so let me try this. And the slope, I was like, how can anyone climb this thing? I was like, and I felt like I was like I think it was had just rained too, so it was a little bit slippery. I was like literally going down. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so I finally did it. And when I went to the top, I took a photo. I was like, I did it, even though it took me like 2 hours to climb this thing, but I
What a
did
feeling that must have been, right?
it.
Like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was so liberating and so peaceful up there, man. If anyone wants to just meditate and go up into a nice, calm area, and I don't know where you're located, but I'm in California, but it's called the Mission Peak and it's in Fremont, California. I love it. Go to the Horses Trail, is what it's called. That's the hard one. That's the one I took, and I was like, oh.
We have Stone Mountain and a lot of people kind of like, hike up that. So yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds cool.
That's
Yeah.
so awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, your journey, just by even you just sharing with me, and even in your bio that I was just reading, sounds both complex and rich in all of these experiences that you've experienced. Can you just share with us like a pivotal moment that you consider a significant turning point in your self-discovery journey?
Oh my goodness. I honestly feel like every day I try to get a little bit of that, like a little bit of a reminder of like a pivotal change that I'm making. And sometimes it could be something as small as my non-reactiveness to somebody's, response or actions or attitude or behavior. And I could be like, I want to respond this way or react this way, but but I'm not. So that for me is pivotal because it reminds me of where I'm coming from in terms of like immediately reacting or responding without even processing it, from a place of sensitivity maybe. So I can find like rewards in something as simple as that. Or the deepest reward for me is when, my sons tell me like what an incredible mom I am. And for me, it's almost like I hear it for the first time every time, because by all statistics, by all research, by all like prediction charts, I should not have been a great mother, you know? And so when they tell me, I think my son said to me one time, every time somebody meets him within 10 minutes of a conversation, they ask him who raised you, right? And so I think that for me is it's one of the most like pivotal moments of my life, knowing that I have broken generational curses, knowing that I do have self awareness, knowing that I am evolving to where I am creating better people, you know,
Yeah.
better versions of human beings, you know, that I'm like impacting or influencing. And I think that that's rewarding for me. And it just allows me to look at who I've been, who I am, who I'm trying to be, and that's those markers are always pivotal for me. Every time I'm in that perspective, I'm always like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Like, I remember we're speaking about responding differently. I used to respond with my emotion right away. And if it like triggered me in some way, I'd be like snappy, like, and so rude. And I really had to like change.
Yes, yes. And because it's like sensitivity, like if you're getting a massage and like I'm the person who always asks for a deep tissue, but I'm not about a deep tissue life. I'm not. As soon as I'm like, all right. I'm kind of like Swedish, right? So
Yeah.
I compare that to where like they hit that point, and you don't have to think about saying "ow." You just automatically kind of go into that, posture like "ow," and that's what it is when you have all these sensitivities and a lot of like unresolved triggers. When someone says something, it just goes in automatically. Like somebody says sneeze, you never think, well, let me say bless you, just, like reflexive almost. So I'm sure you feel really proud when you're kind of like having an out of body experience where you see how your critters like, look at me grow. Because I would curse you out like maybe even a year ago.
I know. Oh, I had to practice that. I had to like pause, take a deep breath, and ask myself, okay, Gina, what are you learning at this time? What is it that you're supposed to, why is it bothering you so much? And it's,
That part. I think that second question, why is it bothering me so much, is the most important question you can ask yourself because quite often it's not about the person. They're triggering something that's unresolved and it's externalizing in the situation. So let's say you had a critical mom, right? Or a critical dad or a critical ex husband. And then here comes this coworker, just always have some little words of not encouragement, but criticism. And so, they say something to you. You may not really be experiencing the criticism in that moment, but it may be triggering the unresolved feelings that you may still carry from, those situations. So asking yourself, why is this affecting me the way that it is so important for your self-awareness. And it doesn't give the person the power too, because if they're able to just kind of get you to that place, then they'll know, okay, next time that's what I do. I just press that button. Okay, note to self, you know. So that's important. That's that you ask yourself that why is this bothering me so much?
yeah.
Yeah.
And an example is like my husband was singing, and I'm like, why is it bothering me? What the heck? He's happy. Like, I'm supposed to be happy if he's happy? I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, am I starting my periods? Like, oh, what's going on? And it was just so funny. But yes, thank you for mentioning that because it's important that we ask ourselves why? What's going on here? And I love the analogy you brought with the whole massage because I do massage therapy and I've had those moments because I do deep tissue and that's like I would say my expertise, but I can do Swedish too, or I can not even touch you. You can just feel my energy, right? And then but I've had those guests who are like, oh. I'm like, oh, communication is important, by the way. Yes, it's always nice to have a good dialogue between
I,
the guest and
you feel my body just go into like convulsion, like, oh, okay, I guess I need to try less pressure.
right,
But
right.
that's on
Oh,
the outside. Imagine what that is internally. Imagine when
yes.
someone is pressing those unhealed wounds, those scars, those unresolved kind of like potholes. And there is no body convulsion to be an indicator of, that pressure point, right? So
Right,
how,
right.
how does that externalize? And it's just communication, like you're saying, is so important because sometimes even if you don't know what it is, you can just say, you know what, I don't like the way I feel. I
Mhm.
don't like how I'm feeling right now. I need a minute. I don't like I don't like the energy that's in my gut. I don't like whatever's in my chest. Like I can't even deal with you right now because I need to see. I need to see what's going on here. And it took me a long, long time to even understand how important that is. And as a person who helps people, like put your mask on first. You have to be able to understand these things before you get onto, a stage or a platform where you're helping people when in fact you haven't done the work or you're not doing the work because we're always doing it to be able to share, effective tools and strategies with people that depend on you to do so. Like you're the beta, you're the guinea pig. Like,
Oh,
that's what
yeah, we
it is.
have to be, like, the one trying to practice and continue with those it's like a habit, you just have to do it. Then it becomes part of your life, and you're like, "I should have done this a long time ago."
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Now, the process of self-discovery often involves, like, confronting our own shadows, like we were just talking about. Can you talk a little bit about a time you actually faced your shadows and what you learned from that particular experience?
Oh my goodness. I feel like that's a journey that I've been on my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Um, you know, there's so many narratives that are instilled within us at such a young age that defines who we grow up to live our life out to be. That's really not even of us or from us. It's
Right.
just ingrained in us. And I think religion would be a point that I could compare that to. I grew up heavily religious, right?
Mm.
Like everybody was kind of like super religious. But the thing is, it's this notion that you're good or bad, you're going to heaven or hell, you're not perfect. So then this is where you're going. And so as a child, when religion is introduced to you that way, you have this black and white way of thinking, like it's heaven or hell, it's good or bad. And there isn't indeed a God who could love or who loves you in the middle, right? Like he'll
Mhm.
love you if you're good, but if you got a boyfriend and you're making out with him, like you're going to hell.
Right?
Then that speaks to like our own kind of like sexual power and our own kind of like suppression of our own wants or desires, and tying that into this religious kind of condemnation, and then tying God not loving you to that. And there's so many people that's like going through this in their heads and not, saying these things out loud. And they have these kind of narratives of what a good person is and what a bad person is. And I think discovering spirituality as opposed to religion was like life changing for me, and finding my own relationship with God, not what, the programming was, and having to unlearn all those things that I learned. Oh my goodness. Like unlearning, like really kind of thinking, yeah, there is a God and he kind of loves me regardless, not only when I'm good. Like he's not Santa. Like God isn't Santa. So you're and he's not gonna bring you something if you're no, like unlearning religion was like one of my, and still continues to be one of my biggest struggle, and really kind of learning spirituality and love, within itself. And that affected so many other aspects of my life, like even like self-judgment, negative inner dialogue, and how that was kind of predicated on this heaven and hell, kind of concept. So I think that's one of the challenges that I don't even want to say I have navigated, that I continue to navigate. And I feel really good about, because once you understand and accept that there's a love that exists outside of whatever you have to pretend to be, then you kind of put that expectation on people like, I'm going to need you to love me a different kind of way, right? But if you think that, like, well, God only loves me when I'm this way, then you start to look for people who will love you when you're like, you know. So that's been one of those. I'm kind of all over the place, but that's been one of those like paramount, like paradigm shift in like how I think and the grace that I give myself. And by giving myself grace, I'm able to extend grace to others. Like I'm able to be like, oh, you just having one of those, you know. This is a this is a period of ratchetness for you. Okay, let's talk about it. Or this is a period of you're being too hard on yourself. Let's talk about it. Or this is a period of denial, not just a river in Egypt. Let's talk about it. You can give people more grace. So I think those things have kind of like meshed into a part of my growth, and it continues to be like on a daily basis.
Yes, and thank you again for bringing that up because I think a lot of guests are kind of afraid to talk about the whole religion and spiritual. I mean, I would put on my podcast that I'm open to talk about spirituality. I would never grow up religious or spiritual, but gr through my own experience, what I had is to experience in order to get to where I'm at now, to understand that unconditional love that is out there, whether you call it God, source, universe,
Yes.
energy, frequency, whatever, it's
Yeah.
there. And I always had issues like with some churches. I'm just like, man, they're the first ones to judge. Like, what the heck? I thought like there was supposed to be no judgment. What's going on here?
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Absolutely. Like as a child, I felt the first condemnation and like self condemnation in a church. Like as a child, I think you have a responsibility to introduce love through faith or spirituality before you introduce punishment and hate. Like no, this it's backwards.
You're right.
You make a child feel like there is an entity, there's a being, there's a source, a force that loves you regardless. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't matter what you do or who you are, how high you are, how low you are, know that you have this love that is with you all the like how much better is that if every child started out with that,
Right.
knowing that they have that. And I did not start with that. And I had to pay miserably for that. I had to pay with relationships. I had to pay with failures. I had to pay with unawareness because I didn't know. And I kept looking for, like, I had an inkling that that love should exist. So I kept looking for it, like, in all the unrealistic ways, like how I saw it on TV.
Yeah, right. The programming on the TV.
Oh my God. And
That's
that
why
was
it's called programs. Hello, right?
but it's all a part of like even the work that you do, like what a testimony, you're able to let someone know that when you say you understand, it's not from like a theoretical, like you read it in the book, like you get it, you
Right.
understand. And I think that's what makes the relationship I have with my clients, because they know that like I get it. I can't judge anything because I've been there. So
Right. Exactly. And speaking of as your clients and you being a wonderful life coach as you are, what inspired you to create workbooks and journals to help others? And how do you believe they actually facilitate personal growth?
so I have a master's in clinical mental health, and I was going the traditional route, but that did not work out for me. And so I thought, okay, like people come to me all the time for perspective, not advice, because I feel like you get your advice from a friend or from family,
Mhm.
perspective in terms of where am I looking from? Am I missing something? Is there a pattern I'm overlooking? Is a blind spot? Um, but I realized that people spend a lot of time in their heads and they don't really document certain things, right?
Mm,
Like,
right.
how do you track your mood? How are you able to compare what your mood has been every day this week versus, like, I don't know, 3 months ago, right? You can
Mhm.
have access to a memory, like, yeah, I think last month I was like an average mood. So I have a mood and habits tracker. So that's letting you see your mood, letting you see your habits. And one of the questions I asked, like, who's the first person you spoke to? And who's the last person you spoke to. And then you may go back and look at that and be like, wait, you know what? I talk to this person all the time. Like, I hope my mom never sees this, but so I realized that my mom sometimes can be highly anxious. And sometimes I would just talk to her in the mornings. Like I wake up, she would call me and I'd have a conversation. And then I start to realize that after a conversation with her, quite often, it automatically shifted my mood. Because when you're
Mhm.
engaging in any kind of anxiety, when you just wake up, that like you haven't even had time to come to this plane, right? Like your feet haven't even touched the ground. And I have my phone in bed, sometimes I'll answer. And one of the hardest decisions I had to make was like, okay, I love my mom, but we're gonna talk after 12. If there's an emergency, I have two other sisters, let's, reach out to them. But for me, it was kind of like, let's do after 12. Because I feel like after 12, I'm already up. I've already kind of like, access whatever energy I need to, even if I moved off the relax, the stress, but I'm not going straight into it necessarily. So by tracking my moods and my habits, it kind of helped me to realize, like, hey, you know what? This is kind of like, shifting you a little bit. And so that kind of inspired me for the mood and habits. And the other one is like the thoughts and feelings. Like we have so many thoughts, and if we track them and kind of look at them and be like, man, I think about this thing a lot more than I realize because it's in this journal like
Yeah.
30 days. And then at the end of the month, we have a tracker with like, what was I supposed to do? What did I do? And what do I still want to do? So if after 3 months, your 3 month, like assessment is showing you the same thing, then maybe you're not taking as big a step as you can. So
Mhm.
I love journals because they help you with the space in between the gaps to kind of have a better perspective, a better lens, and kind of help you. And the one that I have now is a little bit more in depth. So I just released that. It's the surviving the breakup and preventing others. That is more than a workbook. That's a biopsychosocial colonoscopy of your dating habit style, but it's really focused on examining you, right?
Mm.
Like, what are you looking for? What are you choosing? How did you even get to the point to where your selection choices are that? Are they yours? Are they based on fears? Like, it's a full book. And I love that one because I feel like if I had that like 3 relationships ago,
They're
I would not.
hard. That is so
I
awesome though that you created that. Now, I was going to ask you, um, what actually inspired you to create to create that? It's called Surviving the Breakup and Preventing Others.
would.
Because trust me, I've had many breakups. I
Oh
even
my,
including a divorce before.
I send you one. I'll get your info. I'm gonna send one to you.
Oh,
To me,
wow.
it's like, how sometimes I hear women say, I don't understand why this keeps happening to me. I'm a good person.
Mm,
I've heard
mhm.
people say, like, being a good person isn't the secret of having a good relationship. Like, that's not what I'm a good person. I don't understand why this happened. I don't understand why people keep cheating or why people keep doing this or why people, like just take, and why do I just give. And I think when when I think about relationships, I'm always thinking, what role did I play in this
Mm,
relationship not working? Literally. Like if I was in a relationship and I came home and my boyfriend was like in bed with another woman, obviously I'm gonna react and respond. But when it was all said and done, I would ask myself, what role did I play in that? Because maybe you come and you catch somebody that's cheating on you, but maybe that's not even a person you should have been with in the first place, right? Maybe
right.
that's a person that the flags were going off and you just kind of like bypassed it. Maybe it's a person you broke your non-negotiable with. Maybe it's a person like you want to have a relationship with a guy who has a good relationship with his mom and he doesn't talk to his mom, and then so this is who's cheating on you, right? A person that
Right.
you broke your own rules for. So I think when I thought about the workbook, I thought about what are some of the things that I really didn't look at that I probably should have looked at. What are some of the questions that I should have spent more time investing in discovering the response as opposed to the emotion, right?
Mm.
The high, right? This love because I'm Aquarius. I love love.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I will pick love like, oh yeah, but yeah, but because I see someone's spirit and I see the beauty within a person, but it matters not if that person doesn't see it. So you're in love with a part of that person that they haven't even brought to the surface, right? But because you have discernment or because you have an ability to see the beauty in everything and the beauty within souls and spirit, so you're in love with a version of a person that they have not even grown into.
Mhm.
And so respond or hurt you out of the part of them that haven't grown into the beauty that you know lies within, then you say, okay, is this a formula that's working for me? Is this a formula? So this workbook, I think the very first few pages, it's like, what was your mom's goal for herself before she had you? Like, who was your mother before you came into the picture?
Mhm.
And when I did the exercise, I realized that, oh my gosh, so much of the things that my mom had for her dreams were dreams that I had before I had it. So I'm going to send you a copy. It's a really, really in-depth analysis of relationships and like a colonoscopy before you move on.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate I I embrace all gifts. So thank you. Yeah.
Amazon Prime, you have it in 2 days.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Love it. Love it. Now you also do have a gratitude journal as well. Because
Yes, yes.
gratitude is a powerful tool. Like I love waking up first thing. I'm like, okay, even though I woke up, maybe cramps, maybe headache, we wake up different every day. I always have to say, you know what? I am just grateful that I woke up. First and foremost, I am here
That,
today.
that, do you know how many people don't do that?
A
There's a
lot.
lot of people. And sometimes it's not that they're not grateful. It's just the daily stress just hits their mind as soon as they open their eyes. And it's kind of sad, but we have to train ourselves how to be grateful. We have
Hmm.
to train ourselves when we wake up in the morning, just like you do, and that stress hits you of all the bills that's due and work and the traffic. You have to rechannel your mind to say, yes, that's all going to be there, but let me get into a space of gratefulness first. And maybe it's only 30 seconds, then it can get up to 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 5 minutes. But we have to train ourselves to like access that, and that journal really helps with, because I feel like gratitude is magic.
Hmm.
Like when you're in a place of gratitude, that's where manifesting comes from. I feel like it's a secret ingredient for manifestation. So that journal was kind of designed around helping people that it's not as natural for them to do, to kind of do that in incremental steps until it becomes a part of their being.
Yes, gratitude is magic, just like you said. Like yesterday, I was in traffic for 3 hours when normally it takes me 1 hour. And I was like, okay, you know what? I am least grateful that I am not around any speeding drivers because we're all stopped. Because normally that road, there's like some crazy drivers. I'm like, slow down. They're going like 100 miles an hour on this windy road. That's like crazy. I'm just like, how are you even driving like that? But I
Wow.
was grateful that, I'm like, you know what? There's a reason why. And I went to go pick up my son. And then when on my way back, there was still traffic. I said, okay, maybe it's just one of those days. It was just a traffic day. There was no
Yeah.
accidents or anything. It was just so many people going that way in particular. But I still had to find something to be grateful for. Like, hey, I have enough gas in my car. I'm driving and I feel safe, and so I feel protected, so oh, gratitude is key. Yeah. Now, for listeners who are on their own path of, self-discovery, what actual advice would you go ahead and give them for staying on the course when the journey becomes difficult?
One of my favorite expressions is, we all want to be set free
Mm,
by the truth, but before we can do that, we have to discover the lies that holds us hostage.
mm, I
I
love that.
think so many times we are holding ourselves hostage by lies that we've told ourselves, by lies that people told us, by lies that society kind of pushes. And as we're trying to grow, a lot of times we're trying to grow with these ingredients as a part of the growth. And I think it stumbles your growth when you're trying to grow so other people can uh, acknowledge you or see you, or when you're trying to grow because you want to be, something for other people to love or aspire to be. Like, none of that has anything to do with you, right? Because you can have like all the admiration in the world. If you're not happy and if you don't have joy and if you don't have peace on the inside, then it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So I ask people when they say, I want to change, when clients come to me and they say, I want to change, my first question is why? And sometimes they have to think about it. because they just have the language to say like, I want to change, I want to change. Why? Because if you want to change to be more successful, so you can get to like get into cooler parties,
Yeah.
or so you can have more followers, like that's not a change. I mean, that's okay, no judgment, but that's not my thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to be a part of that process where we're developing and enhancing holistically, like mind, body, and soul, And if the whole reason you want to change is just to chase the bag, then I'm not the best person for you to kind of, and I'm expensive too. So you can find somebody less expensive to like help you with that, right?
Right.
So I would say, why do you want to change? And if they're wanting to grow, in what direction, right? Because not
Yeah.
all growth. You ever bend some kind of plant a weird way and it's growing, but it's growing like in the wrong direction. I have this plant in front of my house and I thought I was doing so good by cutting it and just making it nice and pretty. And one day I was walking around the neighborhood and I saw these beautiful, like long trees. And I was like, man, those are beautiful. Only to realize that that same long tree is the exact thing that I have in the middle of my yard and did not know it.
Oh, wow.
I cut it and it's just going into this nice little bush, but that's not what it is. It's this beautiful long tree that I've changed its growth by cutting it into a rose bush or something. And I didn't even know that was the same plant. So I
Oh,
usually say to people, if you're trying to grow, in what direction? And are you sure that the direction that you're trying to grow into is the potential of your purpose? Does it go with the purpose? Does it align with in this, what is it? The untethered soul, he says he wants the spirit not to do the bidding of the personality, right? But have the personality serve the purpose of the spirit and the soul.
mhm.
And that's one of the things I want whatever it is I'm doing to be feeding into or lending into the growth with purpose. And those are the work that's why I try to work with people who are wanting to grow as it aligns to their purpose. That's important.
I love that. Yes, yeah. Now, you've inspired many of our listeners already. I'm sure. Now, if they want to go ahead and start working with you or want to go ahead and get your journals and workbooks, where can they go ahead and find you?
Oh, so if you go to Amazon and you put Denise Dixon spelled the regular way, you'll see the workbooks and the journals. I think there's another Denise Dixon that's on there. She has a book about poverty. And so when you put Denise Dixon, you'll see it. That's not my book, but hey, if you want that book too, I'll plug it for my sister. I'll plug it for but my books are usually like the journals and the workbooks, and a lot of times they'll kind of have like this kind of setting. This is usually the style that I have,
Wow, that's nice.
a varied chapter. As far as booking sessions with me, full disclosure, and it's kind of like you too, like we're highly sensitive people, and like
Mm,
energy is like such a big part of what we do. And so in the initial conversation, we just kind of like have an assessment to see if it's a match. Because I can't necessarily work with everyone. And so we have to, kind of have an exploratory conversation to see if their goals align with mine and if it's going to be a fit. They can do that on my website, which is iamdenise.com. And, I usually check my messages from there. I don't do the phone thing because I guess, again, energy. Like, I'm on the phone all day testing people. So somebody could just, send me a message and say, hey, I'm interested in working with you. And, then we set something up. And then I have courses also that we do year round that, we meet in a group and we just kind of work through relationships, authenticity, where are we trying to be versus where we are. And we have retreats like twice a year. I'm Jamaican, so there's always an annual Jamaican retreat.
wow. That is amazing. Sign me up just for the retreat to Jamaica.
Yes.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness, Denise, thank you so much. Now let's talk about your podcast though. You have a podcast. Let's talk about it. Well, let's talk about that.
Oh my goodness. So my podcast is called Let's Talk About It. And I have another one I just started called Reboot. I'm just gonna
Nice.
start that season. But Let's Talk About It. I initially just kind of wanted to have conversations with people at the point in which they were. And just kind of, get to know like how has it been for you along the journey. And I ended up talking to a lot of authors and, a lot of coaches and just kind of like shared their experience. But one of the things that I realized, even with interviewing a lot of authors, was I still couldn't get to the vulnerability. I think a lot of people, when you interview them, and you can attest to this, they want to stay in the space of the success, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the success. Like we just, yes, and we're doing great, and we're doing great, and we're doing great. And it's like, okay, that's great, but how are you really doing?
Right.
And what are some of the struggles that you still have while being great? I wanted to kind of get in, more with some of those conversations. And so I think that's what the reboot is going to be about. It's going to talk about, you get to a point sometime where you have no other option but just reboot.
Right.
It's too much in
Right.
the past. It's too far in the future. You just gotta like reboot, just like we do with the computer. Like, okay, just enter Zen from there. Like, let's just start from where we are. So I love
Totally.
I get to like talk to people, and I'm always inspired by people just kind of like really aware of where they are. In the journey, I get inspiration from that, and it makes us feel less alone as human beings and more connected. So that's what I love about doing the podcast.
That's awesome. Yes, and I'm an empath as well. And so I understand when it comes to feeling energy. That's why I'm like more of a hermit. I thought I was an extrovert. But then I'm like, as I learn more about my soul, I'm more of an introvert. But I still enjoy like conversations and I'm very bubbly and very talkative.
Yeah,
But out there,
yeah. It's draining. It's draining.
I'm like, I don't like that's why the driving sometimes when they're driving fast, like they just
Yeah,
had a horrible day. They just got into a fight. He's mad. Oh, this one's on drugs. This
yeah,
one's been drinking. Like I sense everything. And
yeah,
so I totally understand what you're talking about. Like the phone calls. No, 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 no.
yeah.
Please.
Just let
But
me into it from like seeing something right first. But it's and a lot of people don't understand like how draining that is.
it is.
And we have to be careful because like I'm going through that right now where I'm a little addicted to my solitude.
Yeah.
Like I find myself trying to wrap my day up so I can go home and watch Gaia.
Yeah. I love my me time too. It's just I hated being by myself before. Like I was like depressed. I was like, "Ugh, I need people around me." But no, when you start really loving yourself, you really want to spend time with yourself and do things you love doing, like that hiking that I was talking to you about. That was me time.
I do that too. I love to travel, so I travel alone. And it's so funny whenever I travel alone. It's really annoying when people say this. You're like, oh my gosh, you're by yourself. And then they'll always say, you're so brave.
Brave.
I'm like, brave for being by myself. Wow, you travel by yourself. You're so brave. And I'm like, so now I'm just like, yep, that's me.
Brave traveler. That's hilarious. Oh, but Denise, any last thoughts or any last words you'd like to share?
Yes. I want to tell anyone who's watching or listening that they should not be they should not feel obligated to want to be anything other than what they can be. So much times, like so many times in life, we're so pressured by what we ought to be that we
Mhm.
do not appreciate what we are being. And sometimes who we are being is a person who's trying. Who we're being is a person who don't have it all together, but we're not complacent in that. Who we're being is a person who wants to understand, but why do I do that? Yeah, I shouldn't have done that, and that's the person that I shouldn't be with, but why is it? What is it in me that is propelling me to be that or to do that? Not just so I can get rid of this person or get over this person, but so I don't do that like repeatedly. So just kind of like love on where you are, give grace to yourself, continue to grow, continue to desire growth, and just understand that you're doing the best you can. And if you're not doing the best you can, try harder. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Denise, for being on my show today. I had so much fun talking with you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. As when we're talking to people like energy, like you're so glowy. I was like, oh yes. You're like a glow of light. You came on the street and I was just like, oh yes. And you're so beautiful.
You too. Thank you. Yes, and I was just like, sometimes you can just tell, like when it's like, oh, when I heard you on the podcast, I was like, oh, I already, she's like my soul sister already. I already know. You just know. And so, but thank you for that compliment. I really appreciate that.